Ladies and gentlemen, after our previous session, this is going to be the first night ever that we've done consecutive episodes. Welcome to another episode of the Anatomy Podcast. And tonight we have a band returning to the podcast, which is always fun. That means there's a mutual liking well enough to bring it to that level. Tonight we have the Human Tragedy returning, that being Sam from the initial episode for this band returning. And it was awesome to have him on last time. It's great to have him back. And then we have their vocalist as well on board tonight to tell his story and to help us dissect the legacy of Extermination lyrically later in session. So for those of you who are not familiar, even though we are now 45 episodes at least into this series, we have the first half being for the people. We learn about everything that they feel needs to be shared or could be shared regarding their background and their journey into being a musician, participating in the various creative mediums. And then in the second half, we will be, like I said before, dissecting lyrically their most recent, their most relevant record, and kind of learning as much as we can more about the band itself. So, Sam, Johnny, how you boys doing tonight?
Doing all right.
Good.
Yeah, man, I'm good.
Fantastic. And I mean, it's pretty cold down here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, but it's only 51 degrees right now, and it's slightly raining. Is it pretty cold up where you guys are right now?
It's about the same, maybe a few degrees colder.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, at least it's not like dangerously cold, or at least you guys aren't like, being buried in by snow and stuff, because I definitely would not know how that is. Born and raised in Arizona, like we didn't really have that. So
I grew up in South Texas, so I didn't see snow until I moved here.
Oh shit, there you go. Well, I mean, after all, we have learned about Sam's story quite a bit. So basically, we'll be jumping right over into Johnny's story, and we will be basically going from as early as possible, as he wishes, and we will be learning everything important to him as a musician. So you may start whenever you are ready, sir.
Cool, man. Well, like I've always been infatuated with music. There's like pictures of me as a kid that my mom used to have, like when I was wearing snakeskin boots and a little cowboy shirt, and I was running around with a little acoustic guitar singing Garth Brooks and shit. But as that progressed, like started kind of finding music on my own. That kind of started with like the grunge scene in Nirvana, Soundgarden, stuff like that, and then slowly progressed into heavier stuff, found Metallica, Megadeth, Pantera, and it just kind of spiraled from there. And before I moved to Kentucky, because I moved to Kentucky when I was 16. Like I said, I'm originally from Texas, just south of Houston. And so I had some friends, and we were like, started to get instruments and starting to learn how to play. We're like, we're going to start a death metal band. And we had this big idea, and none of it ever came to fruition, but I still had the same drive when I moved here. And so I started my first band. This would have been like early 2001. And that was Destroying Angel. And apparently there's a band that's called that now that's actually gotten some recognition, and I got the initials tattooed on my arm, so it's going to look kind of stupid.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I kind of always started with vocals then. I just played vocals. I started playing guitar when I was 13 and kind of picked up bass here and there, but I've always been really a vocalist at heart. And mainly the influences would be like Corpse Grinder and bands of that nature. Morbid Angel was a huge influence. Cannibal Corpse, obviously. Moving on later, like Travis Ryan really became kind of a leading like icon for me to kind of work around and base stuff off of. So that was Destroying Angel. Years later, that band breaks up, and then I still stay with a couple guys, and we start a different band, playing, never really do anything much with that. Then, what was it? There was a band called Rooker Assassins around Nicholasville, and I played bass for them for a little while. And when that band broke up, the singer for that band and myself started a band where we were both lead vocalists.
Oh shit.
And that was called Behind the Beheaded. And we were, yeah. So we kind of got like some local recognition for a little while. We were together probably like, I don't know, at the end, probably 8-9 years. I can't really remember. I smoke a lot of weed, man. It's hard for me to remember dates and shit.
That's okay.
But from Behind the Beheaded, we tried to do a name change when we had a big like transition where we lost some members and gained some new ones. So we kind of tried to rebrand ourselves and it didn't work. And after that, I wasn't really doing much. And then Sam hit me up and asked if I wanted to play in this project. And that was back in, what was that, Sam, like 2013, 2014?
That was probably July, August of 13.
Okay. Yeah. So then they had some music ready to go, and so I just wrote lyrics and recorded it. And then we played together for a little while, did some shows and stuff, and it was kind of pretty hard to make happen where we were so spread out back then. I didn't have my own wheels then. I was relying on a girlfriend. I actually blew up a vehicle going down there to the studio one time. That was a lot of fun.
Oh I remember that. I remember that you parked at that old Shell Mart there right off 15.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun to deal with after that weekend. But so I ended up leaving, and then I was in another band called Creature of Exile, which I'm still affiliated with, and we're still doing stuff slowly. But then things progressed, and Sam asked me to come back. After some time, I was like, let's not use bass tracks live, and I'll just learn the songs and play bass and do vocals. So now here we are.
Hello. Okay. I know I can be heard now. Okay. My mic was having issues. So, I mean, yeah, it's fair to say right off the bat that you've had your hand in just like being a part of bands, being a part of projects, and no matter what, over time, you've always seemed to triumph, and you just kind of continue moving on. You try to find like the next best opportunity, which is always great. As a musician in the modern world, it's always very important, as I've observed from other artists, whether they're well established in some of the biggest record labels in the heavy music world, or if they're just completely independent but they have a following. Like, it jumps around so much as far as the circumstances with reception, community following with these bands. But one thing has prevailed above all else, and it's just applying yourself. It's getting yourself involved with music. It's participating as much as possible in the art medium that you want to put yourself in. Because if you're just like daydreaming, right, about joining a band, maybe like me in junior high and high school, you're doing like chicken scratch logos, and you're like, this would be a pretty cool band, but I don't have like, it doesn't really go anywhere.
Started for me.
Yeah. And I mean,
I remember I got I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I was just
sorry. There seems to be a little bit of a lag there, but it just started all with that. But as soon as you get done with that, you just got to continue applying yourself. You got to learn a couple instruments, which I should take my own advice in that statement, because I'm trying to do bass, but I do not know shit on bass compared to what I could for the music I'm trying to write. But it all starts with that. It all starts with that daydreaming. It all starts with that ambition. Some people might call it naivety. Just like, oh, I want to be in a band.
Right.
Well, is it going to pay the bills? That type of shit. It's always that conversation with your loved ones and your parents, like your I wouldn't say, I was going to say superiors, but I'm just like, the adults that you're surrounded with. Right? No, seriously. It's a whole process. It's a whole process, but it all starts with just chicken scratch logos, man. And then if you find the right people, if you get lucky, then you get to be in a band with your friends. If not, you kind of have to talent scout and be like, hey, I know some shit, but I really just want to do vocals. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, with that in mind, like, so you mentioned that you've done bass for bands before. You've dabbled in guitar since you were about 13. So I definitely do have to ask the question, or I feel it's, it's an urge. Have you ever like ended up helping the boys in the Human Tragedy write like guitar riffs or write bass lines and stuff for the material?
Not yet, but moving forward, I plan on being part of the writing process.
Badass. Okay. And I mean, yeah, the more, again, the more you apply yourself to the project, then also the more integrated and the more personal the project feels to you. Because I mean, let's face it, me as a vocalist, for example, or a vocalist and lyricist for a project with one song out and everything except instruments is done by me, like woo. But it's like you want to become a part, you got to become more part of it. Otherwise it's like, what are you doing for the project? Like, are you doing the business side?
Yeah,
No, not really. I just write lyrics and do, vocals, and it's just it's the front man syndrome, right? It's like
right.
you think of like the vocalists over time who are just kind of doing that. They're just kind of hanging out instead of like really practicing or something. It's the same thing. So I digress, getting a little bit too deep into it, but it's the truth after all. The comment that you had before, Johnny, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you remember
No,
where you
you're good.
last left off?
No, I was just gonna say, it started with, sitting around and just like having a notebook full of lyrics that have never been put to songs, and right now, like you said, drawing out the logos and stuff. And I remember I would get in trouble at school because I'd sit there and be writing fucking gore lyrics instead of, doing algebra or whatever the hell I was doing. So yeah, it was definitely a lot of just that whole childish, daydreaming of being a rock star and, opening for Morbid Angel or something crazy like that. And so, it was a lot of that, I didn't know it then, but, doing the things that I was doing was in a way manifesting what I was going to do later.
Right. No, that I completely agree. And it all just starts with the daydream, but then you got to turn that daydream into reality. You got to have that ambition and push forward.
You got to make time, not excuses.
Exactly. I like this guy. He knows exactly what I mean.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, while we have him in session, I definitely wanted to have Sam jump in a little bit, because I mean, we've kind of talked about a little bit about Johnny's story before, have we not?
A little bit, yes. I explained, how we met up and how it all came to be.
Right, exactly. So I mean, we have, yeah, we have gone back on that here and there, and thank you, Sam, for previously like mentioning that part of the story, and now here we are, connection. This is a sequel podcast episode or something. Really, really fun. And again, thank you guys for deciding to jump back on the podcast, because this is indeed a really cool band. I know that this band is going to be making more moves one day, and really soon, with you guys like already announcing and stuff that you plan to do more in 2023. I'm like, fuck yeah, they're coming back. Let's go. So let's see.
We can't still.
Right. I mean, that's how it should be, man. If you're in a stalemate, if you're in a standoff for too long, then you kind of like lose the traction, you lose the momentum. Funny enough that I was talking with Shiva, our last guest, about is just like, you got to keep going and you can't stop. Otherwise, things are going to like fall off, or things are at least going to be stale for a little bit. And nobody wants to be in a Mexican standoff, just like doing that forever. You got to keep moving forward. So let's see. You've mentioned here and there, Johnny, your vocal inspirations and stuff, that being Corpse Grinder, Travis Ryan, the vocalist of Morbid Angel. So speaking on behalf of your background with guitar and bass, I was looking to inquire, looking to ask you, looking to pry a little bit, as much as possible, comfortably, about what ended up like really getting you into guitar, maybe some guitarist and bassist or just instrumentalists that have helped you keep trekking with those efforts over time.
Yeah, I mean, hands down, that goes to Pantera. I know that there's all the modern controversy over Phil's ridiculous antics and things like that, but he's consistent, at least, at being full of antics. But yeah, definitely Dimebag, man. Like seeing Pantera when I was 16 absolutely changed my life. So It was a hot summer's day and outside of Houston at Houston Raceway Park, and they came out on stage and just blew my mind into the ether. Like it was just
Yeah.
hands down that was the number one band. And then I found there was bands like Anthrax and Testament and Slayer. Like that was all what I was finding at the time. So Jeff Hanneman was a huge influence on as far as guitar goes, and it was really bands like that kind of spun me and sent me off in the direction that I went.
Exactly. Sweet. And it's awesome to hear, man. It's awesome to dig a little bit more where we can concerning your background as not only a vocalist, man, as not only a lyricist, but also an instrumentalist. And I love to hear that you are planning to contribute to the writing process in the future with guitar and bass. Like that should be really cool. And I hope to hear that kind of like emerging and just kind of creeping its way through the music, because that's always fun. It's always fun to hear when members of a project are like trying to just become more involved. Like that just makes the music more passionate. It adds more soul. It adds more perspective. It adds
Absolutely.
a new tone, to the music
Yeah,
itself.
you just get like a more organic, unique thing because of all the extra influence from multiple people putting in their ideas.
Exactly. Let's see. So you're a guitar guy, you're a bass guy. What's your favorite riff?
My favorite riff, fuck, man. For nostalgic purposes, man, I'll have to go with like the verse riff from Mouth for War. That was like the first song that I really got into and like learned how to play the whole riff, like almost all the way through the entire song, minus the solo, of course. But yeah, definitely the verse riff from Mouth for War.
Badass. And we also have joining in the chat with us, Mr. Johnathan Barnett. Welcome to the party, baby. Good to have you on.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Sweet.
What up, JB?
Not much, man. How you doing?
Kicking it.
We're all kicking it, man. It's a lovely night here in the eastern United States. Nice and cold. But that being said, Johnny, I was looking to go ahead and pluck off of you then 5 different albums, artists, or people that have really helped you contribute everything creatively to what you do in the Human Project thus far. The pressure is on.
Yeah. Iron Maiden. They just have always been near and dear to my heart as well. I've already talked enough probably about Pantera and Dimebag being huge influences. We'll go for like people that I look up to as far as being lyricists, and I would have to say, and this as far as his writing, not necessarily his sound, and I would have to say Danny Filth. I love the way he writes lyrics. He just like paints wonderful paintings with words, and so I really respect that. Mike Patton, I would say, as far as a vocalist, also, he's just can do everything. I don't know. I know I've already mentioned Travis Ryan. That's pretty influential. To go for some like non-metal stuff as well, like I love Dr. Hook, man, a band from the 70s. They're just like, they had a very wide spectrum of styles of songs that they wrote, and it's just really groovy.
I think you got 4 down. I think there's 1 more to go.
Okay. I mean, there's just so many.
Too many to count.
Yeah, I mean, you could find something for someone in any capacity too. So
yeah, exactly.
You forgot to mention.
I'll give some new. I'll give
anything about Periphery. He loves Periphery.
Yeah, I don't really listen to them though. That might be my mistake, but I don't know. They just never really scratched that itch for me.
I mean, dude, there are so many hundreds of bands in the world, man, and like so many hundreds that like try to harness that same sound. So it's like, you think of Periphery, and you can also think of like August Burns Red, Fit for a King, Beartooth. Like
I'll give a newer band some love. I mean, they've been around for a while, but they're really starting to gain traction. But like Shadow of Intent, man, like
Ooh,
is a hell of a vocalist. I love what he does.
dude, absolutely, man. Shadow of Intent, shout out to them. So that was Johnny Martin's contributions to the Anatomy podcast, allowing us to dig a little bit more into his background, learn about him as a vocalist as well, to my surprise, via this session, as a guitarist and bassist. Thank you, Johnny Martin, for for sharing everything with us. And
Absolutely.
now that we have good old JB in chat, I was learning to dig into your background, learn your story. That way we have your perspective on the human tragedy here on the podcast. So, my friend, if you would basically just introduce us to yourself, let us know and like provide insight to the listeners on where you were born, where you grew up, your role in the band for starters, and then we'll go from there.
Born and raised Hazard, Kentucky. I've traveled a lot, but never lived outside of here but once. As far as what I do in the band, they send me a song and I record it. They want tracks laid down, I make them, and that's what I do with this band.
Hell yeah, dude.
How I got associated with it, sitting next to me. We've been a part of several projects over the years. And yeah, I've been a musician now for 30 years, probably longer than these guys. Started playing keyboards 17. So I just kind of keep growing best I can. Started out with trombones and trumpets and kind of progressed into where I'm at now.
Badass, man. And I mean, let's go ahead, if anything, and obviously thank you for the starting segment, introducing us to yourselves. Much appreciated. But let's go ahead and take it as far back as you are willing to. I mean, you have 30 years, which is nuts. Like, I don't even have a decade worth of musical like endeavors or experience or investment, just deep diving into what music is. I mean, I've barely did beginning guitar, or I got to intermediate guitar at the very least, and then after that, like I told Johnny before, it all started with chicken scratch shit. It all started with the logos, and I'm like, I want to be in a band, and they're like, okay, learn an instrument, and I'm like, fuck. So if anything, if you would do us a favor, go as far back as you're willing to, and just kind of like tell us as much as you wish to about everything relevant to your journey becoming a musician and getting to your point now. You may take it away and take as much time as you wish to.
One thing he won't say, he was born coming out playing scales. So he's
just came out the womb, man. Piano and all. Come on.
Somebody's got to put some to our madness.
Yeah, legit, dude. So yeah, you may take it away, sir.
Yeah, like I said, it started out with trombone. I actually started out helping with the high school band. No instrument, just kind of running around doing whatever they needed to be done. My sister was in high school band. That's how I got into it. And once I was able, I picked up a trombone because nobody wanted me to play it. So I decided I would. And once there, I started picking up percussion and marimbas and pianos and trumpets and baritones and tubas, and I just wanted to keep growing. I just wanted to keep playing more things, and because I found them fun. And somewhere along the line, after I did state marching band stuff where we won state titles and did national titles and all that stuff. That was a lot of fun and a lot of work. But when I found a piano, I found something that really gave me the ability to change who I was. Because I started learning something, and this is where I differ from my brothers here. To me, music is all numbers. Everything is relative. Your ones, threes, fives, six, and sevens, they're all the same in Western music anyways.
Right.
And when somebody says, I look at somebody and say, give me the 1, 4, 5, 6, 2, and 3. What I'm saying is give me the tonic, the 4 and the 5 major, 6 minor, 2 minor, 3 minor, and we'll resolve back on the one.
Right.
And when Sam gives me a track, for instance, I'm listening to it.
We just give you the 1 and 5, right?
Yeah, they just give me, the easy stuff.
The open and then the power chord, and that's it.
And I just, I'm able to piece things together mathematically more so than I am sonically.
Right.
Because, I went to college on a trombone scholarship, messed that up, but that was fun. Love jazz, love blues. That's where I got started. And the truth of the matter is, to be in a band like this, you perpetually mess up life, and it kind of brings you back to ground zero. It's like, man, I screwed that up. Let me go make another track. And hey, Peace, what's up? and music to me is something different, because how do I say this? Everybody talks about they love it. Everybody talks about how it's a big desire for them. Music is something that I bleed. And I don't know how to explain that to people, but when I'm in a bad mood, I sit down at my piano and I write something out. The best thing Sam knows to do is piss me off when I'm writing a daggone song for him. Make me mad. He thinks I don't know this stuff. Piss him off, get him going, get him laughing, get him mad at me. And then that aggression starts coming out.
Right.
And that's just the way I write. You can ask him 1,000 times, he'll say, write me something, and I have the track sitting in my lap for a month. And it's just sitting there. I'm kind of like Hans Zimmer in that way. I'm a procrastinator.
Mm.
And then he'll come by the house, he walks in the door, I'm pissed off immediately, and he says, let's write a track, and we keep doing it. And he can sit here and deny and wants to, but the smirk on his face will tell you otherwise.
It sounds about right.
It's weird how it happens, because there's some stuff that we haven't put out yet, and the songs that I think will take him the longest to do, like the 9-minute songs, he'll breeze through it in about 12 hours. But but some sort of like pop arrangement song with like 4 or 5 riffs, we'll spend 3 days on it. And
Yeah.
it's weird. It's weird.
It's
Part
true.
of the beauty of it.
The most challenging thing for me, and as far as like when I try to write with James or whoever it is like try not to repeat ourselves, because he gets bored with the 1 and 5. So that's why I'm always trying to just add like more flavor and influence as I can, because just it makes it more interesting, and it keeps him from being bored, and it keeps him from repeating himself.
Right.
I've told a person or two in my lifetime to change it up because I'm bored.
We're not going to mention.
I don't mention names.
No, that's
But
great.
if I'm not involved, if I don't want to be involved, I'm not going to be. And what I mean by that is, if you send me something and I'm bored with it, it's going to come out that I'm bored with it.
Right.
That's what you're going to hear. But if you give me something that makes me think, makes my brain go somewhere else. Like, I love something that Jim's always done. He'll go from that 1 to the raised third. And most people don't know what I'm talking about, but he'll go from the 6 to that raised third part of it. And it's just like, wow, there's that lift. It's going diminished, but it's still that lift that most people don't put out there.
Right.
And here's one thing, how because Johnny always asks me, how come we have so many fucking tunings? I'm like, we do the different tunings, but it keeps him from being bored. A sharp, G sharp, drop, standard tunings. It's just different colors.
Right.
It's great for the studio. It makes it hard for live.
Yes.
Purpose.
Right. And the thing is too, like with JB's mindset, it's like this constantly allows you guys to just really, really make different songs every time. And bands will have formulas. Bands will try to forge their sound, right? They'll try to forge their identity, but it's based off of like a previous track, right? The impression I'm getting here is that no matter the situation, it will be the human tragedy, right? If it ends up being interesting first to JB, that bounces off of you guys, and then it just creates this epic music that you guys have made so far, namely with the legacy of Extermination. I admit I haven't listened to anything before that up to this point, because there are now like dozens of bands simultaneously reaching out to me to check out their shit. So that with that in mind, it's like you guys are constantly just having to try new things, and you're having to try new things on behalf of someone who has as much music theory and musical inclination as he seems to have, which is really, really cool. And it makes for intelligent music as well. JB, I don't know if you were meaning to continue, but I'm sure you have plenty more to discuss, and I'm very intrigued to hear this.
Basically, it's how do I say this? I'll get sent a guitar track and a drum track, and I'll listen to it, and I'll listen to it, and I'll listen to it, and I'll record, and at some point I say, wipe all that out of there. I don't like it. But you mentioned Legacy of Extermination. That was one of those songs where I was actually able to do exactly what I wanted. And if you pay attention to it, and what I mean by that is they don't tell me not to do things. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I've always wanted to do this big epic 1980s Universal Studios sound. And at one point in that track, I got to do it. I didn't realize it at the moment until I had that French horn do that wah wah wah, and I said, "Man, I can see that Universal logo just coming around the earth." You know, like, that's so cool.
No, it's badass.
Yeah, and as long as I can stay entertained in it, I'll write to it.
Right.
There's been some tracks Sam has brought me over the years, and I just tell him no. Like, I'm not doing it. And he's had other people do those tracks, and that's fine. My feelings aren't hurt.
Vetoed. Now, to be fair, the tracks that he's not wanted to do, they haven't been tragedy tracks. That's
true. That is true.
Let's just clear that up.
Right.
Yeah, that was never the band here.
Another disclaimer about the Human Tragedy is any of the recordings before Legacy of Extermination is not me on vocals.
Okay. Understood.
Just to throw that out there.
Sweet. Awesome. And I mean, either way, just for the sake of homework, definitely have to listen to the previous installments on the Human Tragedies discography. That's a mouthful. But definitely a solid band. You guys have an interesting logo. And I mean, the music, it speaks for itself. Just like JB said, you can hear the Universal logo spinning around the planet. It just has that cinematic epicness to it, and just like epicness, but it, in all seriousness, it does. And that's really what this genre needs, I feel. And it's funny that Johnny Martin mentioned earlier Shadow of Intent. That's definitely one of those bands I think that is, if not already, working to accomplish that type of sound, that theater friendly sound, or that music that could be behind a future fucking reboot of Lord of the Rings or something, that type of that's really what makes music so great nowadays, is that with the world of entertainment at large, it seems that more and more companies, more and more individuals, bigger faces in that industry, they seem to be more open to welcoming that type of music. Not as much as we would hope, but they're getting there. We're getting there for sure. We're climbing that ladder. We're getting up that staircase to the temple that is that connection. So that's always great to think about. And therefore the future is bright, even if it's like dark, gloomy, and gothic. Like it's going to be great. And I cannot wait to hear these just Armageddon tracks behind these movies, behind these shows, whatever it could be. So JB, I wanted to go ahead and ask you, because you're in the Human Tragedy now. You've dabbled in multiple instruments, and piano is really like what helped you kind of like hone in on your musical efforts, or at least that's the impression I've received so far regarding the Human Tragedy. Were there any other projects that you were involved in before this one?
Do you want to go into that?
I'll keep it quick. We were in part of a project called A Cold Sleep a long time ago. And as far as playing with other bands, I've not really done it. I mean, I played at a bar a couple of years there, but that's just trying to make some money. Got a little change in my pocket.
Going jam.
Playing, and I've done all that stuff. That's all fun. The truth about the piano, and I'll say this really quick. What happened is I realized at one point in time in life I'm bipolar, and what the piano let me do was take my mood and adjust it.
No.
Yes, he would never believe that. But if I'm in a bad mood, music helps me get through it, and that's hard to do on a trombone.
Right.
You're not playing chords. You're not making progressions. It's a linear note.
And you're pissing off all the neighbors here because you're so loud in the house.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't care about neighbors.
You go, boy.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't give
sorry.
a fuck.
If you're neighbors, if you're watching this, I'm not sorry. But
sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, just get over it.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, yeah, great merch idea, by the way. Earplugs.
The human plugs.
Human plugs. That'd be funny.
I just love what I do.
Right.
And I've done other projects with Sam. He's the only reason I'm doing this.
Right.
I'd never played a violin track in my life till he got me back from being homeless.
Right.
And I didn't know what a VST was. I didn't know what a sample was. I didn't know anything. And he said he needed a keyboard player for a metal band, and I just thought, you've lost your ever-loving mind. We're talking 15 years ago.
2006, something like that.
Yeah. So I didn't think it was a thing. And if you could have heard the original recordings that I made, good Lord, I'm sorry for your headphones, let alone your ears.
Just a quick snippet. I do believe that A Cold Sleep played with Behind the Beheaded at one show in Lexington.
Yes, we did. It's right there beside Al's, I believe.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a CPR building back then. But
yes,
yeah,
that's what it was called. I never could remember the name of it.
Yeah, that was like in the peak of Behind the Beheaded days for me. Yeah.
No, it's badass, man. And I mean, I think Sam even mentioned that before in session, like just like how you guys all ended up connecting, which is really cool. But I mean, it's been so long since that session, so it's like it's good to reiterate and kind of touch back up on that, and also get it confirmed with the other folks behind those projects at the time. So absolutely, good to look back on that. So JB, obviously, it was more or less because of Sam, right, that you ended up joining the Human Tragedy, and that over time, right, the music that you ended up making, that you have made for this project, well, it didn't bore you, it kept you entertained, it kept you stimulated. Were there like any other like reasons that you ended up joining the project? Like maybe was it a pitch from Sam, just like, hey, you want to join like a spooky little project with me, and like let's see where it goes? Like what was were there any other reasons behind you joining the Human Tragedy?
It's all in the delivery. It's how you sell it.
He's as aggravating as the clap. That's what it is. But no, it just caught my interest. Over the years, we've fought like brothers over the years. And you know what that's like, probably. It's like, I don't want to see you for 6 months and go away, and then he comes back like a whip pup, and somehow he works his way back in there. I don't know how to explain it.
He'll send
look
me
at Johnny laughing. Look at him. And
he'll send me a message. Have you got anything I can track, man? I say, no, man, I don't have anything new.
I get bored myself, and I start sending a message like, I need something to track.
Just at 3 a.m. or something. Like Sam's like, mother of God, dude, it's 3 a.m. Like, we'll deal with this later today.
It really is.
It really is 3 a.m.
Like anything he says after like 1 a.m. to like 7 p.m. or 7 a.m., just look over it. Look over it. It's
yeah. Just remind me tomorrow, because I'll forget.
Lost in translation.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a pretty profound deep dive into JB's background. And I say JB because we have two Johnny/Jonathans in chat tonight. So before we go ahead and move on to the second half of the session, I was looking to go ahead and pluck off of you, Mr. JB, 5 different albums, artists, or people that really have helped you harness everything you've done for the human tragedy so far.
Do you care to repeat that? You said or, right? Not and?
Yeah, or.
Okay.
Imagine if you had Sleep Talking 12 years ago.
Oh, that's coming next. That influence is coming next. I've already got it laid out. Initially, I started off with the whole Batman Begins, Hans Zimmer stuff, and you can hear it all throughout the older stuff. I listened to a lot of Danny Elfman, the big names people know. Yeah.
It's hard to pull off John Williams with samples.
I don't even try.
It's impossible. Impossible.
Don't even try. I'll give you one that I find hilarious. Is something that kept me interested in music was Guns N' Roses. Like when I was young, people like now you look back at it like that's kind of stupid. No offense, Axel, if you even see this.
Don't forget Oscar.
What's his last name?
Oscar or Rojo or whatever. It's the guy who wrote the music for the 3 Lords of Shadows games.
Okay, interesting.
Castlevania.
Oh.
And I found that really funny because in the first video you did, or one of the first ones you did covering the album, you said it sounded like it could be a Castlevania game.
Yeah.
And I gave myself a nice fist bump on that one because I thought that's what I'm going for. I love that sound.
Badass, man.
And you recognized it. That's so cool. Yeah. And as far as other influences, Thelonious Monk, jazz piano player, absolutely phenomenal. Giant Steps is a great song if you're into jazz. And as far as metal, I never listened to heavy metal. I never listened to it when I met him. It never nothing I listened to.
Right.
And I think where I didn't listen to it that much gave me an ability to try and create my own sound.
Yes.
I had nothing to imitate. And if I had something to imitate, I think I would have imitated it.
Right, exactly. And that, I mean, I've talked with musicians before that have created some of the most profound and I would say prolific, but I found out recently that's not what I'm meaning. Right. So there have been musicians I've talked with before, and they call it creative pollution. It's like when you participate in the genre that you're trying to create music for, but you participate in it so much that basically your own individuality, your own personality, your originality, when it's kind of dampened or watered down by all the bands that you listen to, that's creative pollution. And of course, for some people, it's simply inspiration. Like, oh, I want to make a band very similar to a mix between While She Sleeps, Make Them Suffer, Shrine of Malice, which is basically what I'm trying to do right now. And those are 3 very, very different projects, but there are different mechanics of those that I'm trying to incorporate, right? So like there are people like that who more or less take inspiration. But then there are other people who are like, I don't listen to any metal because I want to make metal that sounds like the Human Tragedy or Shrine of Malice, namely. And that's just a whole other animal. But it's definitely interesting to hear when musicians do that, because at the end of the day, they have it behind them. They have, that proof that, well, I mean, I don't participate in the genre, but I appreciate all the bands and reactors or whatever that are reaching out because they're like, oh my gosh, you guys sound like a combination between this and that and that. You're like, that's cool. Never fucking listened to them, but thanks.
Right. That's right.
It creates that authenticity, and I love that.
Well, I mean, with no disrespect to other bands.
No, absolutely not.
When I do occasionally hear something, it's what I expect to hear. There's got a keyboard player. They're playing a line or two. Got maybe 2 synthetic string tracks,
mm-hmm.
And that's what you expect to hear. That's one reason I don't listen, because I don't want to do that.
Right.
And then no disrespect to them. It's just not what I want to do.
No.
I have the sound I like to make. And when I'm able, that's what I want to do.
Exactly. No, and absolutely props to you, because I don't think really many musicians I know, except for you guys and Shrine, which are buddies of mine, love them to death, and hope to get them on the podcast someday. Yeah, like they kind of do that same thing. And I mean, they've been in the industry. Some of them have been in the industry forever. They've been in multiple bands, and that's kind of what they do. But thank you, JB, for providing us 5 different characters as far as your primary inspirations for what you contribute to this band, that being keyboard. And you said you lay down tracks, you like mix and master, all that fun stuff too. So basically the engineering.
I let him do all that stuff.
Okay, understood.
I get off easy. I just write 40 tracks to a song, and he gets to do all the hard work, putting it all together.
Fuck, I'm lucky if I get less than 40.
Yeah, there you go.
Like the one, the newest one he tracked it a month ago, but I just finished mixing it. There's like 67 tracks in it.
Sounds about right.
God damn.
So
one more to go.
One more. Yeah, I guess so. God damn. Okay, so that has been the first half of this episode of the Anatomy Podcast. I don't name it by number because, well, editing process, man. Like, that's going to be a pain in the ass. But we will be right back after this ad break. And we are back. Welcome to the Anatomy Podcast. This is us talking with 3 members of the Human Tragedy, that being Johnny Martin, the vocalist, Sam Brashear, returning from the original session, drummer, mix and masterer, all that fun stuff, the sound engineer, and then JB, keyboard, piano. Yeah, it's great to have them all here tonight. It's great to have this band returning to the podcast. It's always fun when we have returning bands, because that means, well, there was a mutual sense of just like, I like this. This is fun. It's fun to talk to you. I want to come back. You know, that's always great. It's a conversation continuer or something like that.
Yeah.
But this is the second half of this episode of the Anatomy Podcast, right after our previous session with Sheba from Australia. Shout out to them. They were really, really great to host on the podcast. And now, circling back to the Human Tragedy, that being what this episode is for, I've talked with Sam before in the previous episode about like how the Human Tragedy got formed. If anything, though, real quick, I wanted to ask both Johnny and JB what they believe like the Human Tragedy, the name, means, and like their kind of interpretation of it.
Go ahead.
I guess for me, I've always kind of thought of it as a instead of a self-fulfilling prophecy, being human is more of like a self-fulfilling curse, because we are cursed to suffer and die no matter what. And so that is the Human Tragedy. That's the way I look at it.
Sick. JB?
Well, as far as looking at the name, I would say that it is most definitely just symbolic of Sam. No, I'm kidding.
everything I fucking touch dies.
Don't let him grow
let
a
him
garden,
garden.
man. Don't let him grow a garden.
Goddamn.
Yeah, we do this in case you're wondering.
Right.
This, as the Human Tragedy, I would just consider it civilization. Every civilization rises, every civilization falls, and eventually the earth will take itself back.
Right.
And
Therefore, the Human Tragedy. I like that.
therefore, no matter what the human does, it's going to end up in tragedy.
Yeah. And that's like, it's always so sad to think about, is like how self-destructive we have been throughout all of our history. And that's just like one history. Then there are the conspiracy theories about like Atlantis and the land of Mu and all these other previously incarnated civilizations before like these massive floods. That's a whole other thing though. So no need to like rewind so quickly. But yeah,
I know some bands they want to write stuff that's hopeful, but here at Tragedy, we like to extinguish all hope. Make sure people don't have any hope.
Hey, I mean, it fits with the name, dude. It fits with the brand. So there you go. Dark, ominous, Castlevania-esque music. Something for a darker movie soundtrack like Boom Bada Bang, The Human Tragedy. Love to hear it. And I've absolutely loved what I have heard so far with the legacy of Extermination. Speaking of that, Johnny and the rest of you gentlemen,
Yes.
would you be willing to go under the skin of the legacy of Extermination and provide further insight into the record for your listeners?
John,
Well, I mean, and are you like specifically the song?
Just like every song on the
'cause-
album, really.
Okay. Well, some of the songs on the album are older songs from a time when I was in the band the first time, and then we remixed them and I re-recorded the vocals for them, and we put them on this record. Some of their newer tracks, Legacy of Extermination is a newer track that I'd written lyrics for, and we ended up going with that for the title track just because it was epic, and then we also had the video that went with it and everything.
Right.
From like a concept standpoint, Legacy of Extermination, it's really touching on that whole idea of the curse and the demise of being a human, like we just discussed. And then, like, for me, when I wrote the lyrics, and obviously they can be interpreted any way the listener wants to, but for me, when I wrote them, it was more like an extraterrestrial superior civilization viewing what's going on here and coming to the conclusion that the best way to save us is just to exterminate us.
kind of like
Shit.
Independence,
Huh?
kind of like the movie Independence Day.
Yeah.
Badass. No, that's a great start. And I mean, I was going to ask about the back of the book summary, but there you go, people. There's your back of the book summary. So,
I lost audio.
I know. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yay, I'm back. Okay, so we dive into the legacy of Extermination, starting with track 1. So it begins. What's going on here lyrically, or is this it's been a little bit. Is
That's
this
just an
like
intro.
intro, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so in that case, track 2, we have Substance of Despair. What is going on here lyrically?
my pants.
It's more of like that, like an internal struggle with that curse of existing, and just kind of like the perspective of like never feeling like you can relax and be able to breathe, that just the weight of existing and the oppression of it alone is just too much to bear.
Badass. That's obviously a great way to start the record. Just being in that mindset, realizing that the tragedy and just like the weight of everything. It's like, as a human being, you try your best to be a better person, a good person to those who surround you. But at the end of the day, we all have our sins. And like, that's not even talking
yeah.
from a religious standpoint, but like we're animals at the end of the day. We just have more gadgets and gizmos. So we're like, fuck you, bear. I got a rifle. And they're like, like that's really the only difference between us and the planet's biggest predators is we have a freaking helicopter that we can just throw at a bear or something. Not that you should.
Right.
That's not cool. Don't be throwing choppers at, freaking grizzlies. Okay. That's not cool.
Yeah, you might encounter a cocaine bear.
Exactly. I was just about to mention that they might be on cocaine. Even then, well, maybe then throw a chopper at it. That might help, but who knows? That's funny. I can't believe that's a Tennessee local story. What the fuck? Track 3 being the architects. What's going on here? Is this like talking about the aliens? Is talking or introducing them?
The architects is really discussing like the real powers that be, not the ones that you see and are argued about on Fox and CNN, but
Right.
the real people calling the shots, the ones behind the scenes making everything happen and drinking our blood, basically.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm like, Freemasons? The Rothschilds? Yeah, you're right on the money there. It's funny. Oh my God, it's so fucked. And I really hope they get dismantled here pretty soon. But who knows how long that will take, you know? And even after that, it's like, what do we do then? I'm like, well, just don't pretend that there are 4 different political parties here in the US when there's only one. You know what I mean? It's goofy as hell.
Right.
But okay, so we got Architects, which
Oh,
is low key about like the Freemasons and shit, which is always fun, or you know, just whoever's behind the
Mhm.
scenes. Track,
Shadow government, basically, is the way to
yeah,
say it.
shadow government. That's the healthy term because people are like, oh, Freemasons, watch what you're saying, dude. You might get taken away.
Right.
Um, track 4 being the 9 servants of darkness. Like that's a title track, dude.
What about his
Yeah,
legs?
it's literally about Lord of the Rings. It's about the Nazgul.
Okay, no, that's badass, dude. I mean, one way to incorporate and kind of like attribute, connect the human tragedy with what has inspired it. So that's really cool. We already talked about the title track, that being the legacy of extermination, this overarching narrative of powers higher than ourselves, controlling everything behind the scenes and just creating a legacy of extermination. Everybody, please go check out the music video for that. It's done really, really well. And it's the reason that I ended up hosting this band on the podcast in the first place. It's just good shit. Go check it out. So we move on to track
Shout
6.
out Matt Napier.
Shout out to who?
Matt Napier. He's the one that shot and edited the video. He's done a lot of great work for a lot of the bands in the area. He's really talented.
Sweet. Shout out to Matt Napier then.
Yeah.
Sweet. Track 6, we have Beneath Moonlight, which is like this already sounds so gothic, bro, but I love it.
Yeah, so that one, it's another it's instrumental, and it's really just like the precursor for the track coming out.
Right. Okay, sick.
Actually, explain.
Yes.
I wrote probably 3 different versions of that song in the last 15 years.
Really?
Yeah.
One is a waltz that you heard on the album. One of them's heavy that you can find somewhere on YouTube. And one of them's just a piano track. And we tried forever just to get it to work, and it just never worked. And somehow, some way, that waltz just popped in my mind one day. He's hounding me to do this. We called it Haunt at the time. He's saying this track Haunt. I'm saying no. I finally give in because, like I said, the clap. And it turned out to be great. It turned out to be something I like. Ironically, I never finished that track.
Really?
What you hear, the last half of the track, is the first half of the track because I never went back to finish it. And I forgot completely what I had done.
Oh, shit.
And the irony is, I think it makes more sense that way than what I would have actually put to it.
Because it's not settled, it's not finished.
Right. It doesn't completely resolve itself.
And therefore you can probably do like a sequel follow-up track to that in the future or some shit and be like, hey, remember Beneath Moonlight? This is the other half, bitches. Like that type of thing.
Dark Side of the Moon.
We actually put out a video for that not soon after Legacy.
Oh shit, really?
It's just him and a piano and a big empty hole.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out, being that it's been such a long time since I've listened to this record, and like I just listen to an album every morning, so it naturally gets kind of like washed out of the brain. I'm like, how did that album go again? But at the same time, I know I love the album, and that's really what's important. Track 7, we have To Wander the Earth. What's going on here?
So that is the only track that I have not written lyrics for. That was a song that they had ready when I joined way back when. And so I just tracked it. He already had the lyrics, and I kind of mapped out the patterns with what was written. But my interpretation of the lyrics on that one is really like a descent into losing your mind, just like the world melting away and an alternate reality is now before you.
Oh shit. Okay. That's awesome, man. And
I have some insight on that one. When the original person wrote lyrics for it, he had asked me what kind of idea I'd wanted for it, and I told him something like Do you guys remember the fictional character from the Dimmu Borgir album Death Quit Armageddon? Had the, you know, the guy with the cloak?
Oh shit.
Yeah.
He was called the Wanderer. He's like half man, half god, walking the earth after it's done, been raptured and everything. That's pretty much what I asked him to go for, and that's how it turned out.
Sweet. No, it's actually really cool and funny. I'm like now realizing, goddamn, I'm not original because my main character for the channel is this dude called the Overseer, and it's mainly for a band called Worm Shepherd and their Facebook community. But I've always loved the idea of like the Overseer like leaking into the album covers of my buddies' bands and just like, wait, who the fuck is that shrouded character? I'm like, that's me. I am the Overseer. And I've been like trying to do that forever now. And hopefully I can still do it in the future. That'd be so much fun. Just like very, very Odin inspired, but also apparently very similar to Dimmu Borgir's The Wanderer. So that's always really fun. And now I have to definitely check this track out again, listen to it again, and see if it matches my vibe. Like, but track 8 being Where Time Stands Still. Mr. Martin, what is going on here, man?
So that it's another instrumental. So I'm sure JB will have more to talk about on the musical side of it.
Right.
As far as the title goes, I'm a huge power metal fan, and Blind Guardian is one of my favorite bands of all time, and that's kind of like homage to their song "Time Stands Still" of the Iron Hill.
Oh shit. Okay. I haven't listened to Blind Guardian. What would be an album you would recommend by them?
Probably Nightfall in Middle Earth.
Oh, sick. Okay. So straight up a Lord of the Rings themed album.
The whole album it's a concept album that tells the story of the Silmarillion.
Sick. Okay. JB, what commentary and insight do you have for this track?
It was, best of my knowledge, the first track where keys were written first.
Ooh.
I was bored, which is never good, and I sat down at the keyboard and just started. I just had this pattern, just digga 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 digga, and I wanted that last part to just, I don't know what it was, just that moment in my head, and I was like, I'm bored. I'm putting this out there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I wrote it. It was probably a minute and a half,
Something like that.
and Sam heard it, and I'm not sure how it got to where it was, but that's, to my knowledge, that's the first and maybe the only track where the keys were written quite a bit before the guitars and drums got their hands on it.
The reason I remember when we was trying to make it heavier, I asked him what the roots were for like a bass track, and then I had James come to like different power chords, just single note stuff, and then this abruptly just end it to go into something else. Because it was meant to be used on the last record as an opening track, but it didn't happen that way.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, JB, was there like, so you said that when it comes to you like writing music, which we talked about before, you think of the music and you think of what you're doing more as like numbers and stuff. Was there like any type of visual going on when you were doing Where Time Stands Still? Did it like end up aligning with the other two impressions upon the song?
If you're talking about, kind of imagery with it,
Yes.
I never had a name for it.
Mm.
They ended up calling it Where Time Stands Still. I never had a name for it. But the one thing that I could see in my head over and over and over was civilization. A growing civilization, to where I didn't have the title to go by. But I actually released that at some point in time on a YouTube channel forever. I don't know when.
Right.
And I just did like a Canva type videos for it, little short snippets. And all of it is buildings and traffic and bridges and cars. And because when you listen to it, I ended that with a video of a subway.
Okay.
Because that's kind of what I was getting at, was time moves so fast. And it was ironic to me when they called it Time Stands Still, because I was viewing it the exact opposite, was it just never stops. And I think that for me, when I put it together, those things go hand in hand. Like I had no idea what the title was.
Right. No, that's actually really ironic how it ended up.
It was very ironic because I wanted it to show In fact, I think I called it Hello. The name of the track was Hello.
I think I remember that.
And it was just because once you say hello to somebody, you might see them 5 years later, but you remember them. Time just goes and goes and goes.
Yes.
And then eventually it just stops. And I guess that's where they got the idea. Was it stand still too?
Yeah, no, it's actually really cool. And I mean, if nothing else, like even if it is just an instrumental, people, there's always a story behind it. And that's why we do this type of shit. Because that's really cool how that ended up working out, how the track of it ended up like contradicting your original purposes, your original intentions with the song. And you had your multiple incarnations of the song, and then the final product was delivered, which doesn't even resolve itself. Really, really cool. Really awesome detail in the music. So track 9, we have Enigmatic in Design. I almost mispronounced that.
Everybody does.
So that one, I got really stoned one night, and I was watching a documentary on black holes. So literally the song is just about what it would be like to cross the event horizon. Like kind of what you can imagine what it could be like, getting stretched so thin that just time goes on forever, and you're being stretched that entire time, so you never really get through. It's just a little bit of marijuana and nerdism.
Hey, yo, it works. If it makes music, and if it makes music like the human tragedy has provided, that's actually really cool. Have any of you gentlemen had the opportunity to see Interstellar? Because I haven't, but I'm curious.
I have.
Okay, all of you have. Okay.
Me and him went and seen it opening night, and we were so pissed off because it was recorded in IMAX and like 11, like I think 7.1, and half the fucking speakers didn't work, and it was like, oh, it sucked.
You could barely hear things Emma wrote, man.
We couldn't hear nothing Hans wrote because it was like everything was like panned to the left. I'm like, man, fuck.
That sucks, man.
It's like it's meant to be space, So the way he wrote that was very spacious.
Yeah,
not half space, okay?
Left, right. Not even a center track. It was just right there.
Oh my God.
The only thing we could hear was like a whispered Matthew McConaughey and an occasional organ. That was that's all we got.
Yeah, this is
what we're going to do now is we're going to fly through space.
Oh, that's fucking hilarious. I'm so sorry that you guys didn't end up getting to hear the music like your first time sitting in the theater. Oh my God. Like I think it's discomforting being in a theater when the seats are like too compact, or when like it's not that quiet, or when like the sound in general, all the speakers are working, but like it's not as good as it could be. Like the bass drops aren't there or whatever. Meanwhile, you guys are like, we only heard Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
It fucking sucks, man. And that's an iconic film. I still have yet to see it, but I really want to.
I think all we caught was his accent, to be honest with you. I don't think we heard anything else besides that. All right. That accent is all we really heard.
Hey, that's Matthew McConaughey for you. That's all right. Like
that movie is so good, though. I mean, everything about it, it's so good. I'm looking forward to Chris Nolan's new movie, Oppenheimer.
Oh yeah,
that's gonna be good. About the atomic bomb. Yeah.
JB's like, I don't fucking know, bro. It's okay though. I mean, sometimes it's very exhausting trying to keep up with the world. So I completely understand it. So it's track 10. We have Harbinger of All That You Fear. Like, that's another great title. I love that. What's going on here though?
So that one, I've got some friends that have been in the military and kind of given me their take on what it was like, at war. So basically that song is, there's like a force or an entity that's there that you can't help but notice on a battlefield, because everybody's scared to death and there's dying and suffering all around. So this force is the harbinger of all that you fear.
Damn. Yeah, war sucks. No one ever wins in war, bro.
Just a little. Just a little.
Sucks and swallows. I'll detail.
So what do you think about war? Sucks. It sucks.
It sucks. No, that's and so like essentially this ended up being kind of like your impression upon what they were telling you, right?
Yeah, just kind of like how I could visualize, when I'm interpreting from their words and things like that. Um, there's like a line in the song just to kind of paint a visual of it. It's like where I say in the middle of talking right now, so I don't have. It's going to be like verbatim, but it's
Right.
as the body falls, fire another round. So it's basically saying you don't have time to think, you just have time to kill.
Yeah.
And that's all that you can really do.
Which, like, yeah, I remember being like born and raised, and my dad was trying to get me into like the Navy and the Army and shit. I'm like, no, dude, I don't want to kill anybody for a living. That's not. I don't want to do that. Like, that's fucked. And absolutely all the respect to all of those who do serve, because I mean, I know none of them want to kill either. Like, and if they do, that's because they're a berserker, and it's like, good for you. We'll send you out first, like that type of thing. But track 11 being Opus number 1. Is this another instrumental?
No, it's probably the most positive song I've ever written.
Okay.
But it was also one of those songs that like I really just threw the lyrics together really fast to try to get the song done so we could get it out.
Right.
But it's basically just it embodies the idea of constantly moving forward regardless of any negativity that's thrown your way or any obstacles that pop up in your way, just the constant tunnel vision to the goal. And it's spun in a positive way, even though it sounds like a demon screaming it at you.
Well, I mean, that's always good, is to keep a positive note despite what is the human tragedy, and that's just like what we end up inflicting upon the world, inflicting upon each other. Like, you got to have some type of ambition, and you got to have some type of goal despite all that. So that's really good. Second to last track 12.
Johnny, I want to ask you about, what does that mean? Success will not be determined. What does that mean?
Well, it's only half the line. It's success will not be determined by those who doubt. So that's talking about the negativity that's thrown your way. It's not what's going to determine if you're successful or not.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. That's great. We have the closing track, which is 12 minutes long. I remember this one. I'm like, holy shit, this is 12 minutes. Like, that being A Vile Transformation. To conclude the album, what do we got going on here lyrically, Mr. Martin?
Well, this one's definitely the most personal to me. It's about not really an ex. We weren't ever an official thing, but it was about a chick. And she was one of them witchy chicks, and so there's a lot of verbiage in there about candles and spells and turning from an angel into a demon, which is kind of a spin-off of what her name was, whatever. But yeah, it's a slut slicer song.
Slut slicer.
Slut slicer. Just like that's
the next album title.
We are the human tragedy. This is Slut Slicer. Like,
but so Sam, you can explain the length of the song, because it's actually because there's a hidden track on there.
That's right, there is. Totally forgot about that.
Yeah, the hidden track is something that I was just messing around. I knew like 2 minor chords, and that's pretty much all that is. I wrote that in my bedroom for like over 3 days, and then I just want to put something over it so it wasn't so boring. And I found Ian McKellen was speaking at some college, and it was some poem or something, and I pretty much just ripped the audio.
I thought it was. I thought I remember you telling me back in the day that it was he was doing like an excerpt from some Shakespeare or something.
I think it was Shakespeare. Yeah. So I ripped the audio from a video and then imported it, cleaned it up, chopped it up, and just made it fit.
That's really cool. And I mean, what a great way to end a record. It's just like, hey, surprise, there's more. Like,
whatever Shakespeare poem it was like they were it had to do with killing people in the middle of the street or something in France or somewhere. I don't remember the exact.
And I have a kind of an interpretation about that. And to me, I think if it was Shakespeare, I'm not sure if it was, but if it was, I think they were probably experiencing a lot of the things that we're experiencing now because history just repeats itself. But I think,
right.
Dealing with their own form of like what cancel culture is now, or cancel culture.
It is cancer culture.
It really is. But I kind of feel like that's what he's talking about because like he quotes like what he's saying is you would put down strangers, kill them, and it's all because they're different, and it's just talking about like just butting heads to a degree that you can't come back from, and I think that it has a lot of tones that can reverberate through what we're experiencing today.
Yeah. No, I mean history, yeah, that's enough said on its own. History repeats itself, and like I don't even know, man. Like there have been so many terrible things that have repeated. It's like you wonder why people just let these things keep happening. Oh wait, it's because they don't care. And like that's
part of the human tragedy.
It's part of the human tragedy. If fucking exactly, dude. So that has been the Under the Skin session for Legacy of Extermination. After wanting to do that since really the first podcast session, and now we're finally here. We did that, and dissecting this album has been a pleasure, really, as well as hosting the human tragedy on the Anatomy podcast once more, as we become closer and closer buddies as time continues, because this has been just like you guys are great musicians, you're great people, you got great ambitions, you're accomplishing amazing things with your music, and I am definitely here. Yeah, of course, I'm definitely here for the long run. So as we wrap up this episode of the Anatomy podcast, is there anything else you gentlemen were wanting to mention before we go ahead and wrap up session?
You guys got anything?
We're still trying to figure out what we want to do this year. Obviously, I hope to. I mean, I'm sure we'll play out some this year, but I don't know if it'd be as much as last year. I definitely want to put out some new music. I definitely want to do another video. We'll just have to wait and see.
Because all things are in progress.
Yeah, because I'm in a different place than where I was the first time you had me on this podcast. So I'm trying to manage the time a little bit better so my life doesn't fall apart at home.
Right. Completely understood, man. You got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of your personal life before it's like, you're investing more than your own personal and your musical. Like, as much as you want to be an artist, as much as we all want to be artists, you got to prioritize your mental health. You got to prioritize the situation when it needs to be prioritized. So absolutely kudos to you for taking the time to get that done. Even if it meant that the podcast session was delayed a little bit, like, oh, boo fucking who, bro. Everybody's got their own personal lives. They got to deal with their shit. So absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen, for jumping on the podcast. JB and Johnny, thank you guys for jumping on for your first time. And next time, once we get the human tragedy back on again, the aim will be to have James join us as well, as we then conclude the human tragedy edition of the Anatomy podcast. I look forward to it. I'm excited to cover the rest of the story for this band. And otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for the next episode. And buenos freaking noches, dude. Konbanwa. I think.